Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wherever you're at in the world, because this is going to find you in one of the four corners of the world, uh, because of who we have on the other side of the screen today, on the airwaves today. Uh, I'm super excited to dive in and to get started. So, without further ado, I'm your loving host, Joseph Dunham, also known as Joe D, here at the Good Service Podcast. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time, we thank you. However, which way you found us, social medias, a referral, you were looking for some positive stories, wholesome news, just to uplift you during these times. That is us. That is what we do here: is interview and have great conversations, inspiring, wholesome conversations with service-based organizations, nonprofits, foundations, charities, fundraisers, even some for-profit companies that have a social impact mission to make the world a better place for the people that are within their community. So we thank you for joining us for the very first time. For those of you who are a part of our good service community that continue to come back, listen, watch, subscribe, we do this because of you. We're here because of you. So thank you for all of the love and the continued support. So that's us. That's a little about me. Let's talk about our immaculate guests and who's on the other side of this conversation today. Today's guest is a true pioneer in purposeful travel. Yes, you heard me, in purposeful travel. Kimberly Haley-Coleman is a founder and executive director of Globe Aware, a nonprofit organization that's reshaping the way we view volunteerism and international travel. Featured in the New York Times, Forbes, countless global publications, Kimberly has carved out a movement around voluntourism. So we're taking volunteerism, tourism, boom, compound word, voluntourism. Allowing travelers to make meaningful, sustainable contributions to communities across the globe, all in just 1 week. From the boardrooms of major corporations to remote villages in Cambodia and Ghana, Kimberly's impact is far-reaching. She's a visionary leader, a global connector, and a fierce advocate for cultural awareness through service. Whether she's guiding Fortune 500 professionals or students on immersive service trips, her mission remains the same: building a better world through hands-on, heart-first engagement. Kimberly is also, I'd be remiss not to mention, a TEDx speaker and sits on numerous boards, including Texas Business Hall of Fame, which she is a part of the Hall of Fame. Drumroll, please welcome Kimberly Haley-Coleman to the Good Service Podcast.
Oh, no, Pastor Joe. Thank you. Wow, what an intro. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here talking to you.
Oh, you're too good. You're too good. It is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. This is long awaited. So we're excited to learn more about who you are, as the laundry list of excellence that you have, that track record that you have, and more about your personal story, how Globe Aware came about, how you're serving today in this new year and these new times, and just sharing with the world the beautiful things that you've been doing for so long. So we're grateful to have you here, and I love to share for our first-time listeners how we found out about this organization that we're speaking with today. And hey, Kimberly, I believe you found out about us, or your assistant might have found out about the Good Service Podcast, and got us connected. And I was like, hold on, I love what she's doing. We need to get on the phone. And we had a phone conversation. So what was that like, learning about the Good Service Podcast?
So it was our intern, Santiago, who found you guys and said, you two need to know each other. That's how it happened. And I'll have to ask him how we found you, but I'm assuming he was out there looking for who else was looking to have those positive conversations about the good that can be done in this world and shining the light. And so I'm sure that's how we found you.
Well, Santiago, wherever you're at, back at school or off into the world doing things that you were blessed to do, we thank you, brother. We thank you. Because without you, there would be no Kimberly and Joseph in this moment, the Global Aware and the Good Service Podcast. So with that being said, I do also like to share a little bit around the organization and what that looks like and sounds like. So Global Aware is a nonprofit 501c3 developed short-term volunteer programs in international environments that encourage people to immerse themselves in a unique way of giving back. So think if you want to go to, I know I mentioned Cambodia or Ghana or somewhere in India or Guatemala for even just a week to serve, Kimberly and Global Wear have made that possible for short term engagements of service, which a long time ago, which not so long time ago, but wasn't something that was very attractive or sustainable. And her and her team have been able to make that dream a reality and have impacted lives upon lives. So, without further ado, Kimberly, would love to hear how you got here to this point of being CEO, executive director of such an awesome global organization of service um, after leaving such an illustrious, you know, corporate career.
Well, I tell you, I didn't start out this way. I would love to be able to tell you I had an epiphany when I was 13 years old and knew I wanted to do this, and this is not what happened. But what I did do, what I think is encouraging for a lot of people who may not know where they want to end up, that if you do pursue the things that make you passionate, even if it's not necessarily, I got a master's in art history before I got an MBA, and I think my parents were so nervous on how I was going to support myself. But um, I knew I was always attracted to learning about other cultures. What was real about them that wasn't just a postcard view of it. You know what parts of a culture reflect their different alignments, whether it's Buddhist monks and how they live, or Catholic nuns, and what unites us, what makes us all have the same things, and then how are we different? And those have always been things that were really of interest to me. And I was doing other things in a totally different career and finding myself in other countries over the weekend for work, and having already seen the sites, wanting to find a meaningful way to spend my free time. And I found that most organizations just aren't set up for short term service, whether it's a church or a school or a community group, because of the amount of time it takes to volunteer and to set up and oversee. It's just usually something that people want for longer term. It's why the Peace Corps wants you for, 27 months. It's not 2 weeks. Not everybody can do that. Hopefully, if you have the time, you can do that. But once you have a job or kids or a mortgage or any number of those things, it could be really hard. And that's why, after I started doing this on my own on the side and seeing that other people were interested, I, was really driven by the concept that if short term service was designed with the same rigor and accountability and respect that a longer term project was, and that it was substantial, where you could see, touch, feel, and understand that difference in terms of helping somebody stand on their own 2 feet, and working with local communities directly, hand in hand, that was the way to go, and there was no going back. So that's really how it came about.
Amazing. No, amazing. It's I I get a different side of the conversation because I get to do research, right? And our average listener has no idea who you are until an episode airs on, one of the streaming services or YouTube, what have you. And so it's always interesting for me to understand and get to put a lot of this together and put some pieces together, but there's a lot of gaps or open
That's right.
spaces of what happened, because you had, like I mentioned earlier, illustrious career. You were in international business. So
Yeah.
to go from international business to now your international business is service, I was curious on,
Yeah, how I got there. So,
yeah,
you
how'd
know
that
what?
happen?
As I mentioned, I'd find myself in places like Brazil and Thailand over the weekend, and I'd be there for work. But on the weekends, I'd have free time, and I'd already seen all the sites. I grew up doing a lot of travel. So that is what led me to thinking, okay, if I've already seen the sites, how should I be spending my free time? And I it wasn't some master plan. It was more of a thought of, well, maybe I should be giving back and finding service opportunities. When I started looking for those service opportunities, none of them were short term. And that lit a fire under me that why isn't this out there? And I could see why, because it takes so much time to oversee, structure, and train somebody for a program. But it made me want to do it even more. The fact that it wasn't out there when I started looking for it, when I was trying to find a meaningful way to fill free time while I was traveling. And so I started looking to the people around me, asking, do you know of the people I worked with and met through work while I was on location, asking, hey, do you know anybody I could help? Do you know of a family or friend or something that I can help while I'm here? Because I've already seen the sites. And people were pretty quick to help connect me to people they knew that had things that they needed help on. And when I would come back and tell people about these experiences, I was really shocked to see how many other people were interested by it and wanted to do it too, and were willing to come back with me. That was the genesis. You know, it
Yeah.
was accidental. It wasn't, I didn't start out from the top with this great, big, beautiful plan. But then as I started doing more of it, more people would come with me. By 2003, we got our 501c3 charity status. And a few years after that, our Canadian charity status. And then we just kept building and growing in more locations. And you're right. You know, we meet people every day, even though we've been around for so long. We're really a dinosaur in this space now. But we meet people every day who haven't heard of this. They might have heard of church missions, and we are similar. You know, there are a lot of great programs out there where, for example, a church will partner with another church in Uganda and go once or twice a year. This is different because it's more like, hey, it's like going on a cruise in the sense that you go and you pick the country and the date you're going to join that week. You choose it. Whereas with the church, you have to wait for it to be ready and fit your timeline, right? So they're similar in some ways. But we don't have a religious or a political affiliation. Our guiding principles, our two main missions are to help people stand on their own 2 feet and promote cultural awareness. So anything we do has to do with one of those things. And there's lots of pitfalls out there. There are organizations that have made big mistakes. That there are certainly poorly designed and irresponsible programs that have been out there. I think there have been a really big growing awareness from probably 2012 to 2016 that help people know what to look for in ways we feel like we've distinguished ourselves that have been really important. The evolution, it hasn't been a straight line. And, you know, everything from Zika to COVID and borders being closed, this has meant a bit of a roller coaster for what service abroad has looked like over the years.
I failed to mention or didn't mention the 501c3 status in 2003, but I know you had started your missions around 2000 with a couple in Peru and Costa Rica, from what I had read. And so for you just to continue on and then to receive that resounding feedback that was like, oh my gosh, others want to get involved while
Others
you're on
apparently are
site,
interested too.
and then just the snowball that would turn into an avalanche to, hey, this is the rest of your life. And on top of some of the other things that you've done that are very exciting, but this being, you know, one of the major chess pieces for you on the board at all times. So just very exciting. So congratulations to you to keep going, to stay courageous and to build the plane while you're flying or falling in the sky, right, as they like to say, to where you're at now as to being a dinosaur, quote unquote, in this area of service, because this is net new to me. Like you've been around 22, 20, what? Yeah, 23 years. And this is net new over the last, when we first met and actually getting to this point of having this conversation on the good service. So that's a big deal. How does that feel for you?
You know, it's joyous to me to see volunteers coming back impassioned and reconnected to humanity, because it can be hard in our day-to-day routine to feel that.
Yeah.
We can be so focused on going to work and getting our groceries, or whether it's school or uh, our spiritual communities and our churches, we can get in those routines. And really, when you get outside of that, you get a chance to reevaluate your perspective. Where are you pointed? Are you doing things based only on routine, or are you staying connected to that thing that makes us all human, and to a higher power, to where we are really connecting in a way that's going to be meaningful? And so for me, that has been the really great upshot of all this, is getting to hear other people tap into that when it may be harder to do in their regular lives. And most of our volunteers are first and foremost serving in their own communities, whether it's through, helping their neighbors or a community center or a church. And we really think it starts there. That's the most important thing, is that you are supporting and nurturing your neighbors and your family.
Mm-hmm.
To the extent you have the extra time and ability to go abroad and do this, we think it's really incumbent upon someone to justify that big carbon footprint by making sure that it's a really meaningful experience, and that not just the community that we're serving alongside is enriched. It's sometimes easier to see that, but that the volunteer is coming back renewed,
Yeah.
and with a larger global perspective, and understanding better. And a lot of this can come as a surprise for somebody who thinks they're coming in to help and to serve, without realizing that our volunteers are first and foremost learning, just because they're open to the experience, and that our local community members are faster and better at everything we do, because this is their world. And so we are there serving as equals. We're not heroes. Um, so all of that informs what happens to your brain when you allow yourself to stand alongside someone and see their beauties and the challenges of their life that you might not see if you were just on a tour boat, getting off with thousands of other people and going to museums and tour buses and the same restaurants. This is different because we're hiring local families and women to cook. We're working alongside them, and we are getting to, play soccer and go to their church services and feel reality in a way that you might not. Now, look, we also do all the other stuff. People who go on our Cusco, Peru program are going to see Machu Picchu. They go to Cambodia to assemble and distribute wheelchairs. You're going to see Angkor Wat. We know people don't want to go that far and not see that. So we're working 30 hours during that week, but we are also doing the important cultural activities, and there's free time as well. So that's kind of our the three elements: is free time, culture time, and our service, tightly in that 1 week, very structured time. And you're usually with 10 or 12 people in a group. We do have corporate groups and churches and companies that will, even big family reunions, that will grab weeks that aren't listed on our website. But usually they're pretty small. We really like that. We like having the small groups, so that we're not overwhelming a small community. You're really getting to feel a part of it, instead of that you are making that culture something different.
Right. It's you said some things there that I can't wait to come back to. It's the idea of self being changed as you're serving. You don't initially, oftentimes, a lot of conversations I have here on the Good Service podcast and even outside of this platform, people are like, man, that felt good. I didn't realize what that do for me. And some people feel guilty about that. And it's like, you shouldn't feel guilty. Big part of the reason why
What
God
makes it
gave us that
sustainable,
is,
honestly.
yes. And so it's, don't feel bad about doing good. That's kind of backwards, right?
Yeah.
Especially when it's coming from a place of true, uh, a positive heart posture of service and of love. And then the second part, so definitely want to come back to that in a little while. And one thing I would love for you to extrapolate on is when you're working, how do you get a hold of these people in these other countries to have a partnership with them and say, hey, basically, we want to come and help you. We don't want to come and help you with what we want to help you with. What do
Right.
you need help with?
Exactly.
So how
Listen.
does that work in educating, our listeners and our viewers
So
on
years
partnership?
ago, it took us a lot more time because we would go into a community and start looking for locally organized grassroots organizations that had already identified a need they have and how they wanted to address it. We're just there to stand alongside, and we'll pay for the materials. When they're needing to hire local expertise, our funds will pay for that. But they're choosing the materials, they're choosing the project, they're choosing who will be benefited. Well, that used to take a lot of time, not only because you need to make sure that they've actually fleshed out how they want to do it and have done this kind of work or project before, but also because we had to develop our own criteria on what we were looking for. So it starts with the local community where they decide what they need and how they want to do it. And then we have to match it against, is it safe? We're not going to put people high on ladders and operating heavy equipment. We're not going to be handling bodily fluids because we're not Doctors Without Borders. We're not going to be in war-torn zones. There's all of these things. We're not going to put vulnerable children one-on-one in connection with our volunteers. That's a trained area that is different from what we provide. So we have to have all of our criteria. The local community has their list, and then we come together. That used to take a lot of time, but now communities reach out to us, quite a few every week, saying, hey, will you please send us volunteers? So that makes our job a lot easier. And then if we've been able to match up all those things and it all looks great, then we've got to find a coordinator. And that is the most important, most difficult piece, because it's got to be somebody from within the community. They're the
Mm.
person who shepherds our volunteers throughout the week, who asks these engaging questions at night, these reflective exercises, like name something you're grateful for today, or what's a kindness that you observed today. And then beginning the day, pointing out some cultural item that they never would have thought about if they were just a tourist. And then taking them through the work site and keeping them engaged and interested and seeing what the service level and exhaustion level is of each volunteer. So our coordinators, if we can't find someone locally from within the community to be our coordinator, that's a no-go. Full stop. So it takes a whole lot of pieces, and sometimes it goes quickly. Again, at the beginning, it took a lot longer. Now that we have people come to us, that helps. And we are not motivated at this point by trying to plant more flags on a map.
Mm.
We're not an empire here trying to expand our territory. When we find communities that are a good fit for us and we're able to embrace one another, that's when we add, I think of it as a culture or a community to our fold.
Wow, you said something incredibly uh incredibly charged there. We're not here to plant our flag somewhere else. And what has that been like? Have you in your time come up against white saviorism
Yeah,
complex
right.
where we were like, what has that been like when that has
Yeah.
happened and how you've
Well,
overcome that? Because again, listen, everybody, of course, there's going to be a write up at the end of this. We're going to share how you can get connected. But when you see the list of communities across the world and cultures that Global Aware has been a part of, it's going to wow you. I believe there's no place they have yet to go. Or if they haven't, you might be the first person to say, hey, let's go there. And I bet Kimberly will roll up the sleeves and say, let's go. But what you just said, especially in today's climate and what America and other places is looked at as, how has
yeah,
that
right.
conflict been?
And that's, that is, it's important for so many reasons, and it's important for so many reasons right now.
Mhm.
Um, the Peace Corps was developed by Kennedy so that we would have people from within our constituency who had real experience trying to solve cross-cultural problems, you know, from having lived it. And that we think of as, soft power as opposed to hard power, having a military and guns and what, just, that all has a place. Um, and so does soft power. And soft power is, if you've got a Peace Corps volunteer working in a village in Kenya for 2.5 years, all of a sudden we've got constituents from our community who will understand Kenya better, will understand what are the challenges they face, what are the beauties they face, so that we can come together and understand one another instead of just telling them. So if we're not there, if we don't make an effort to know one another, then it's really hard to move forward. And when it comes to soft power, it's something that I feel like have lost some sight of. People think of the United States as being this big power with economic power and weaponry, and but we have been flexing soft power. The HIV help we've given alone on the continent of Africa, the amount of lives saved and children helped, much of which has come to a screeching halt. But that had really impacted how people looked at the United States. Their view of North America was often shaped by these kinds of projects and programs. So when we're going into a community, we're not just writing a check. We're saying, hey, this community is worth me getting on a plane and coming to and getting to know you, and to see your kids smile, and to sing with you and go to church with you, see your food and taste it from, and not just writing a check, they're getting to sit beside you. And that isn't just impacting the volunteer, that community now thinks of North America differently, that we are also here to listen and to be your friends and to be your brothers and your sisters. We aren't better or superior. We don't know all the answers, and we're going to learn a lot from this experience. And again, that local community is then viewing North Americans in a different way. So it really, from our perspective, is a win-win-win. There's nobody that loses in this, right? The volunteer is enriched, the community is rich. And there are, just in case there are people out there who didn't know this has been a growing trend in the last, I'd say, 12 years. There are a lot of employers now who want their employees to engage in this way. And so they'll have contribution matching programs like Salesforce, Vivint, Microsoft, lots of companies like that, where they will contribute to your charitable cause of choice. So maybe it's United Way, maybe it's Global Wear, maybe it's whatever. So our programs are like $1,500 for the week. A lot of times the volunteer will pay for half of it and their employer will pay the other half, and it's tax deductible for both. So it's a way of growing. So then the employer has offered a non-taxable benefit to the employee. The employee is coming back feeling enriched and engaged and grateful for their standard of living, but also really understanding the beauties that other cultures have. And then the local community is left enriched. So that is really our goal, is that triumvirate of making sure all three are enriched when that's happening. And a lot of times employers will just put together a program of, hey, that's what we're doing this year. We're all going to go to XYZ and do this. So things have not always grown in the direction we thought. And, look, COVID, when turns out when you can't jump on a plane and borders are closed, it's not really good for a company that is doing projects overseas. We got through it, but there have been a lot of challenges, and sometimes you learn the hard way. We have definitely had stumbles, and so enriching and really help us know what not to do, which has been just as important as knowing what to do. And really, listening has been such a key piece, making sure that everything has been locally driven. I feel like the respect and dignity piece starts there.
No, it does. It does. Yeah. And because again, you can Google Kimberly Haley-Coleman. You're going to find a plethora, again, a laundry list of just great conversations, interviews, past opportunities of service. And in my researching, I was like, man, I'm personally curious, because I don't believe that was one thing I did hear about, was what it was like to overcome, when you do get to a place, and we're from America, and it's like the saviorism complex, right? And so what that has been like for you as an organization, but also you as an individual to overcome and then to again bring everyone else, whoever's on that specific trip, in on that and to overcome as well. So I love your heart to serve, and the soft power is something I was like, I like soft. That was a bar. That was a gem. That was a gem. You really dropped that one. So I loved that. And you brought up Kennedy in a lot of different conversations. Where did that, I guess, affinity or interest in his ideology come from, um, for you as you've grown as a leader and to really start Global Aware?
That's an interesting question. You know, the Brookings Institute, which is a think tank based in DC that has all sorts of projects, and one of the projects they looked at, I really wish I remember the year. I'm going to have to look it up. I'm going to guess it's 2011, and they were trying to monetize the value of how our tax dollars were invested in soft power versus hard power. And at the time, whichever year that was, it was around $400,000 a year we were spending fully loaded on our soldiers, their medical care, their training, all that, housing. And we were spending about $16,000 a year on a Peace Corps volunteer. And they were trying to figure out, well, if we put this kind of investment in, what is the output? What was that investment worth? If you have somebody teaching in a classroom for 2.5 years in Zimbabwe, and the whole community feels warm fuzzies and connected to the United States. And if somebody's used to seeing somebody walk around with a machine gun on their chest in their community with a mask on, how do you feel about that culture, that community? And what is that worth? And the upshot is it's really hard to put a dollar value on it. Obviously, we're always going to have a military. The upshot from the Brookings was we're underutilizing it, and we could all do it. We're all doing it usually in our own communities anyway. Doing it cross borders is something different. And, we will get criticized. We'll get random emails saying, why are you helping those people in, Vietnam or Malawi when we've got problems here in the United States? And they have a point, because we do have needs here, and everybody should start with their neighbors. As I mentioned, I think everyone needs to first and foremost take care of those who are right around you. That said, you can live below the poverty line in the United States and still have had access to running water at some point in your life and seeing a flushing toilet. We have people in a lot of our communities that have never seen any of that, even though they live a middle income lifestyle in their culture, let alone have any access to medical care. So there is some relativity here, and yet somebody might feel like they would feel pity for these communities. I tell you, go to Kenya, where the incidence and confrontation with death is much higher on a daily basis there than it is here, for all sorts of reasons. That access to even transportation. If somebody has we pay for medical care, right? And we've got vehicles and so, but if the local community doesn't, and someone has a heart attack, how do you even get them to the hospital? So seeing that local community, you might think that you would feel overwhelming sadness for them. And we take our volunteers to a funeral in Kenya so that they can see the different headspace there. The entire community goes. There's singing, there's dancing, they're sharing food. They are they're outside, and they're very they have, not to say that we don't have memorial celebrations here for people, but it is such a rich community experience that virtually everyone goes to, that you kind of have to experience it to understand it. So I think there are people who might first engage in an experience like this because they think they want to help, they want to serve, they might picture themselves as a bit of a hero. But then when they get there, even though we have an orientation, we have our booklets, we have our podcasts, we have our YouTube channels, and we have our coordinator there guiding people through every day. Even with all of that, people might come in with certain expectations. And as soon as they get there and realize how much they're learning from the local community, it gets rid of those expectations that they are saving anyone. Fortunately, the structure of the experience really helps serve that means, because it gets really readily apparent when you're putting together a home in Kenya and putting the mud between the stilts and you see how the locals know what they're doing, and you're only learning, to help.
Yeah.
So a lot of that in terms of getting around, getting through or past some of that white man savior complex, which is real and a justified concern, because there have been organizations that have gone in and said, we know what you need and how to do it.
Mm.
And that has happened. And I think a lot, there's organizations, with IVPA is one of the organizations where we've tried to put together lists of criteria of what to look for. How do you know if the organization that you're serving with is doing things responsibly and ethically? What should you even look for? What should you ask? And these can be hard. Now, again, I think there's a much greater awareness here in 2026 than there was 20 years ago about what to look for. But it is important to think of those things. Anytime, I even feel, whether you're serving or not, when you're in another country, that you take the time to listen and that you're learning in order to show respect, and not treating local community members as just a subject of photos. It's hard to get around it in our space because people are so joyous and enjoying what they do. So there are photographs and we do share it. And on the flip side, there is this concept of poverty tourism, where people want to go in and see photos and post them of just poor communities. And
Yeah.
so we think it's important that people are asking themselves, when they're photographing, what the purpose of the photo is, and if they're genuinely connecting with the people that they're serving alongside. And yeah.
It's just Kimberly, you're great. You're
Well,
good. You're
it,
great.
it, it is definitely our volunteers and our coordinators that are making the experience what it is. And again, we had missteps in the beginning. We had a bunch of water filters we installed way up high in the Andes that we bought at Sawyer water filters, which are great water filters. They just don't work well at altitude. And we had gone to the community that said they needed better water filtration. And so we went and looked up and bought, and they were perfectly fine to have them. And then when we installed them, we're like, oh no, so,
Yeah.
but you
Yeah.
learn these lessons, that some good things that come with time. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. But no, just again, you're a wealth of knowledge from doing this over the last, 26 years now yourself, and then accredited the last 23 years now. So I just appreciate you being so open to sharing what has been working, what hasn't been working, what it's felt like from your perspective, to have such a, again, amazing organizations doing amazing things. How do you just generally? There's only one of you. There's only one executive director. I don't imagine you go on every trip. So how do you decide on which trips
no,
you and your family want to go on, and
I
how you
tend to
prepare?
go on a corporate troop. Like, so if we have 250 people go, we divide that into 20 to 25 groups of 10 and put a coordinator in charge of each. And so I will go on that kind of program to help coordinate the coordinators,
Mhm.
just to make sure there's somebody helping logistically make sure that everybody knows where they're going and all of that. And that tends to be what is decides where I go, because our coordinators know what they're doing.
Yeah, gotcha. And then two, one thing I'd be interested in learning and sharing with the audience here and community here is it's a week long. So how are you going about, if I was to say, because I'm definitely interested, say I sign up, and how do you go about training someone for that week ahead of time?
So we provide a lot of materials. The moment somebody registers, we email them, hey, here's, the orientation includes, here's what to pack, any sort of entry requirements, um, This is about the community you're serving. This is about your coordinator. This is the weather. We send all that with videos and with podcasts. And we have found that a lot of times people don't read any of it.
Yeah.
And they or listen to it. They're busy scrolling, doom scrolling. We understand that. So we have designed this experience so that somebody has no skills and no preparation. We'd love for everybody to read all that stuff. But realistically, they don't. A lot of times there'll be a big family reunion, and the grandmother that planned it all for everybody and was our main contact read everything and nobody else did. That is common. And so we have designed our programs just for that. So our coordinator basically, as everyone arrives, comes together and fits all that into our orientation and is there throughout the week teaching everybody and explaining, hey, we're in Costa Rica, we eat gallo pinto, and this is why we call it that. And that's why they're taking you through that week, because we know most people are busy and they're not going to spend time preparing. And that is okay. And that is why we've designed it this way. Not having the skills, not speaking the language, not knowing anything about it. People stress way too much about what to pack and what to bring. In almost every country, a couple pair of pants and a couple t-shirts are all you need, and a used pair of tennis shoes. And then when you get there on location and you see so many people without shoes at all, most people will leave their messed up pair of shoes for the community to use because they still appreciate them. So you don't need to worry about what you bring. So in terms of preparation, unless it's a country, there are a few like India where you have to get a special visa, and we make a very big point at registration if there's a visa required for some reason, and we make that very clear. And if there are any sort of medications or vaccines required, we've got one or two where you're supposed to have a yellow vaccine certificate, that kind of thing, or where malaria prophylaxis might be recommended. Although, because we are not medical professionals, we are not allowed to officially give any advice. We will just we have always historically told people to follow the CDC recommendations. I know things are changing and vaccines are changing. And so we think it's good for people to be up to date on base immunizations, and they should be talking with their doctors about that.
Yep.
Because you can step on a nail anywhere in the world. So to have a tetanus shot, it's just a good idea. We're just not allowed to tell anybody to get one.
Yeah. We would highly recommend. There's a suggestion.
Just being up to date on the stuff that could protect you.
Exactly. Okay. Well, now I know some things furthermore. I mean, of course, I read my research, but for those listening who are interested, who can take a week off and go serve outside their community, but impact their global community. Because one thing that I believe in, this is a part of my faith, being a man that believes in Jesus being our Lord and Savior, is that our faith is three things. It's individual, so one with God. It's communal, with the community, so outside here in the streets of Atlanta or the suburbs of Atlanta. And then it's global, the other places that we get sent literally in the world to go serve and to be a light in. So whatever that looks like for you all, when you do decide to join forces with Global Wear, go do it. And now you just learned from the boss herself. You don't even have to know anything. Just show up with things to wear and a heart to serve. So we thank you for that and just sharing so powerfully and vulnerably with us this how you got to this place in such a fun way. And in that, we're moving into the second portion of the conversation. It is called In Good Light. So for those of you who are here for the first time, In Good Light was supposed to be a rapid fire round, knee-jerk reaction, a quick, let's get to know our guests in a more fun way, think about things outside of what they do and who they are as a person. But good questions require good answers. So the one-word sentences or what have you we did by the wayside. So Kimberly, I would love to know where your heart to serve comes from.
I suppose it comes from appreciating being a guest in a culture and not an expert, not a savior, but being greeted warmly as a human guest. And that has been foundational for me.
As a guest, we have yet to get that. Your heart to serve comes from being a guest. That is, so rich. So rich.
Like I said, I'm not an expert in anything. Without our coordinators, I feel like everywhere I go, I'm lucky to get to visit and get to know people.
Yeah, where did that start for you?
So I did get to travel a lot, and I went to a school starting in 8th grade where we had people from all over the world that went to that school instead of just being from my hometown. And I think that informed me. And I also had family that traveled a lot, and I would get to go with them. And I loved it, the adventure of it, the connection of it. So I think just as a kid, a combination of all of that.
Yeah, man, so rich. Well, I'm like, where's this school at? That's the kind of school I want to send my kids to. When I get there and I have like, you need to go to a school where it's everybody from literally all walks of life. And that's so awesome. That's so dope. Finish this sentence for me. The world would be a better place if.
Gosh, we have a whole bunch of answers to that. If we listen to one another more. Listen.
Yeah.
Listen to our kids.
Why listen to our kids?
I'm going to see the Little Prince opera with my dad on Sunday. He and I go to the opera together. We went to this when it was on the world stage in 2003. And that story, if you haven't read it, it starts with a man who's been in a plane crash, and a little boy comes up to him, and he's trying to fix the plane. He's so busy. He's thirsty. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to fix his plane. And this child keeps talking to him. And in the end, the whole book is the wisdom he gets from this child when he finally listens. And it's the kind of thing that they say, that our astronomers might be really busy counting the stars instead of just being in awe of them. And that kids can connect us to that in an elemental way that, again, we forget.
Kimberly, we got to get you back. I'm already thinking about like the next episode or when we're somewhere, serving together. We're just, it's so good.
Pastor Joe, you're coming on one of these programs with you in Guatemala.
Oh, no, you are hilarious. You're good. You're good. In the essence of Pastor Joe, a reason partly why I asked why listen, listen, of course, but why listen to our kids? One of God's greatest gifts and joys in this world are little people. It says in the Bible, these children are a gift to the world. And the most purest form of us all is to be childlike. And the essence and the innocence of that, the raw curiosity, the unwavering joyfulness and glee that just glistens in a child's eye as they don't necessarily understand life, but they do. And so that was in my mind as you said that. So I appreciate that answer a lot.
Even listening to, I've got 2 grown children, but I think back to when they were newborns and getting to hold them and just before they could even speak, hearing their heartbeat. We need to do that more. Listen to all the hearts beating.
So good. So good. Touch grass, y'all. Get off the screens. Yes. Stop scrolling. Go and be still somewhere. And be still when listening. But listening is, for whatever reason, one of the hardest things for folks to do nowadays. I feel like it always has been, but that's another conversation for another time, my friend. Uh, okay, so what's your definition of good service?
Openness, being open to what the needs are.
A new one for us here at the Good Service is definition of good service being open, open to the call, open to
Yeah.
the opportunity. I like
Yeah.
that.
And not having that preconceived notion of what the service should be,
Mm,
being open that your whatever's needed may not be something you've ever thought of.
yeah, because again, people oftentimes will close themselves out of serving because they're like, I don't have the money to give to cut a check, or I don't have,
Or they're
the,
afraid because they think, yeah, I don't speak the language. I don't know how to hold a hammer. I don't know how to relate to somebody of this other faith. I don't know, feeling led by fear
mm,
and perceived risk.
hmm hmm damn, Kimberly, great. Ah, so good, so great. Uh, okay, so your two daughters, what have they taught you? Because you just made one of your answers being to listen to our kids. What had I want to say? Is it Haley and Maggie?
Yes, goodness gracious. Wow, you're good. Yeah, Haley and Maggie, I've learned I'm still learning from them. And it's funny because they're so different from me in so many ways that it is sometimes easier to not judge with people you've just met than the people you know. And they've really taught me I've got to try and use the same lens with them that I do with other people. And I don't always do it. The knee jerk reactions are often not well considered. Um, they're where they want to be pointed. And I want to support them in doing what they want to do. My older daughter, for example, she's a triathlete. She does a lot of, long bike rides, and she was in Seattle and would do these open water swims by herself. And I'm so worried about the danger and the risk and, a boat hitting her, and maybe just go to a swimming pool or do Peloton instead of getting on a bike in Chicago where somebody could hit you. And, I'm thinking about the risk and the fear
Hmm
for her. And I think very natural for a mother to do. Uh, and trying to trust her and have faith in her. And that, so they're teaching me these to try not to be hypocritical when it comes to being supportive of how people want to go forward. And God, they're great kids, and they have very different interests, and I love getting to know them as adults now, having uh, become these people that have formed their own interests totally independent of me. It just shows you the miracle that humanity is, that our creator has allowed for all of this wonder. And boy, I feel grateful that I got to be a parent, I tell you.
Yeah, it's you as you were answering that. I was thinking about my own mother. I just turned 32. I have what, four siblings. I'm the second oldest, and she and I are very close. And it's funny because even as we've evolved and gone through these different stages, elementary school, middle school, high school, young adult, now I'm an established adult. My frontal lobe is fully, according to science, there. Um, but she still has that, I'm mom, and I want to protect. I'm the only one of my siblings that's not living back home or close to home. I'm states away. I've been states away since 2016, 2018. And so, as you were saying that, I could feel it. and that it's newer for you, and I just pray that you continue to lean in to that moment and to that feeling, and know that the training that you've given them, was the best training they've ever had. And there are two versions of you off in the world just taking it by storm. Because that was you once, was it?
I wasn't doing the same things, but I certainly was doing things that my parents were like. Again, I think my dad was like, "What is she going to do with an art history degree?" So I gave them my own separate experiences. That yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you always aspire to be a mother and have a family?
It's funny. I was just talking about this on. I work out with a group of friends, and we were just talking about this. And I think probably in the back of my mind, I always pictured myself as having a family. I grew up with a pretty big family and going to family events, but I don't ever remember, sitting and writing it down on a vision board or anything like that. And I was 34 when I had my first baby, so I couldn't pinpoint when that first decision was made. I really couldn't. And it sounds like your generation, my kids' generation, is less inclined to have babies. So, Pastor Joe, I may be coming and babysitting for your kids. I'd really like to be a grandmother someday. And I'm not going to say anything to my kids. I hope they never hear this podcast. But I'll be over at your house rocking your newborns.
Listen, listen, you know, who knows if it overcomes them at some point? We never know.
You never know.
But listen, I would love to take the family. We go do some serving globally. And what would your grandmother name be? Because I know grandma's not cool anymore. So what would your grandmother name be? So the kids know what to call you.
Mine are Mimi and Pop, but I know there's so many. I mean, my kids call theirs Mimi and Pop and Grandmom. And what I love about Grandmom is it's got a baseball connotation. We call her the GM for short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would yours be?
What would I be? So many people call me Kimbo. That might be weird, but there are so many more weird grandparent names. And when I was young, it was all grandma, grandpa. So who knows? I'll let them come up with it. I think that's the fun of it, right? Is they figure it out.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Okay, duly noted. We'll save that for another time when you're rocking little JoJo's
That's right.
and Josephinas. I'm crying. That's
Every mouth in God's ears.
You are the chief tickle officer.
Yes.
You all heard me correctly. She is a chief tickle officer. Please tell the people what that means.
Okay. There's, a really interesting story behind that. And I think I have done hundreds of podcasts. I think you're the first person to ever ask me about that, at least within Globalware. And I'm so glad you saw that. You really have done some research. So when COVID happened and all 26 of the countries where we work, the borders were closed except for Mexico, it meant my work changed. And we did do virtual experiences for a year or two where people could go and talk to people and learn how to make coffee and local Indian, but it wasn't the same and it wasn't as time consuming. And I wanted to provide jobs and joy to women as quickly as I could. And I was thinking about what did I miss? Because I'm a girly girl. I like going and getting my hair blown out. I love getting my nails done, all that stuff. And I was like, what do I really miss? And I was like, gosh, if I could, I would love just to have somebody tickle my back for an hour whenever I wanted. Somebody should do that. I'm going to do that. And so that's what I did. And so I hired a bunch of people. We did a big thing and it's still around. I really thought it was just going to be a pop-up business. But we're in a new space where I guess people appreciate that human and it's a bit of a riff openly on the dry bar, which a lot of guys don't know about, although I think it started in Atlanta. Where women just go and get somebody washes and dries your hair for you. And a lot of guys would like, why on earth is that a business? How could that be? But ask a girl who's an enthusiast like me. And it is, just even to have somebody wash your hair for you. And it's the same. So we do back tickling and hair we call it hair play, so that, like if I get my hair braided, it'll just put me into a trance. It feels so good. So that's what it's about.
That
Yeah.
is
Yeah. And it's crazy. And in fact,
so crazy.
when we started it,
I was
yeah.
like,
No, we had
oh,
so much press. It was so funny. People really responded in a dramatic fashion, because it is so oddball. But I think most people would always peg me for not taking necessarily the obvious route any place. So
there's a million ways to get to where you want to go, and that's the fun in it. But yeah, the chief tickle, because in my world, CTO, chief technology officer, or CIO, chief information officer. So I know what those people. I know who they are, what they do. They get in my way of making sure that their company buys the software that I'm selling at the time, right? Or they're like, hey, we want to bring it on. We get it. We love it. Come on. Let's make it all play nice. But when I saw that you were a CTO, a chief tickle officer, I was like, what in the world? I gotta know. I gotta know. So that was like, as I was learning more about you through the interviews and just the different articles I was able to read, I'm like, man, this is already a salt of the earth person, but this is a person that you're good. You're good by Joe D standards. You're good by my standards, chief tickling officer. So, but yeah, like that's just so cool. Last but not least, unfortunately, it is that time to transition to. I don't even know why I said last but not least. I feel like I had a question I didn't have. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know. But we're here, unfortunately, at the end of the conversation, this end of this amazing moment with Kimberly. This is called Before You Go. So those of you who are here for the first time, it's as it sounds. It is, we're closing out this conversation. We're closing out this show. So it's our opportunity, Kimberly. I want to now give you full run of the floor to share how can people get connected, how can they volunteer, share your socials, whether that's personal, professional, all of the things. How can they donate? What are some of the exciting things you have coming up? So this is your shameless plug.
all right.
Here
Well,
on the
my
Virtual
shameless
Podcast.
plug is when you're looking for an experience like this, when you're ready, at least check out GlobeAware. And the biggest mistake most people make is they'll look up Global Aware instead of Globe Aware, 3 syllables, but we're everywhere. If you look up that handle, I mean, we're on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and all the different podcast platforms, all the stuff. So we're easy to find. It just comes down to getting over that fear and the risk, and just remembering that the whole reason we're set up is for people who aren't prepared and that don't know what they're going to do or how they're going to do it, and don't speak the language and don't know where they're going to eat. So that's who we want to talk to, is the people who haven't done it yet, because we know they fall in love with it. And once they've done it once, they just keep coming back. So getting over that fear, because this ultimately is about joy that you experience when you're serving, but it's not one directional. You're also giving it to someone else, and that magic cannot be overstated. That joy, what joy it does for you, so we think it's worth at least thinking about giving that to yourself at some point in your life. Yeah, so check us out. There are a lot of good ones. If you're in a church that's already doing this kind of work, you should start there. Then you're already in a community that you're going to be able to build upon. But we really hope to see you. So give us a call.
Excellent. Y'all heard her. Globe Aware.
Thank you. Yes.
Not global. I made the mistake as
A
I
lot
was
of people do.
preparing.
Most
I'm like,
everyone.
global. Because it's just,
I know. We try. I mean, believe me, we've tried to get that name, but no.
So, Globe Aware. It's there. They're there. They're going to continue to be here. So go serve this world. And last but not least, Kimberly, closing remarks. So whatever in this moment is on your heart, please, what do you want to share with the world?
would say right now in my heart that purpose is the baseline. It's not a bonus. It's where you got to start thinking about where you're pointed. And yeah, I that's where I'll leave it. Purpose is the baseline.
It's the springboard. It's how did you find your purpose or discover your purpose?
I kept putting myself in situations that had to do with other cultures just because I knew I loved that. I went through a bunch of exercises creating a personal mission statement over time when I was in my early 20s. I was probably 23 or 24. I had gone to some kind of workshop, and I remember the mission statement that came out of that was that my passion was to help people understand other cultures. And I didn't know how I was going to do that. I honestly just thought when I came, that was at the end of it. When I did all of these things over several weeks, I was like, well, that's not helpful. So some of this is accident, just keeping engaged in the things that draw you in. Yeah. So some of it was accident, but some of it was keeping an ear out and open for the ways to do things I was interested in a way that would be meaningful.
Do you mind if I paraphrase that for the people?
Oh, please.
So what I heard was how you found your purpose was it started with passion and something that fire within you that just got you excited. That roaring, just, fire within. Yours was helping others understand other cultures. Helping others. And then staying close to that.
Yes.
In your own way.
That's right.
Service. And that's your good service. That's your mission statement for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think you're right. You hit it. Thank you.
And congratulations. You've been wildly successful. You'll continue to be successful as you serve and as you just help others who have that curiosity to see the world, to help the world, and then in doing so, learn more about their world. So thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. And with that, I'm your loving host, Joseph Dunham, Joe D. For our first time guests, you're a part of the family now. So keep coming back, keep sharing, keep referring. If you have a Santiago out there, send them our way.
I will. I can't wait to share this episode with him.
Like, wow. We love what we do here at the Good Service Podcast. And this is what we're going to continue to do until the end of time. So we can't do it without you. We're thankful that you're here to watch or listen for the first time. For those of you who keep coming back, thank you for referring, subscribing, all of the things. Keep doing what you've been doing. Keep showing up. Keep listening because we love each and every one of y'all, and we're grateful for each and every one of y'all. So with that being said, Kimberly and I are out, but we'll see you again for another great episode of that Good Service Podcast very soon.